This is a Vox hand-wired AC15, not merely a 15-watt version of an AC30. Sure, it does sound like that if that's something you're going for, but this hand-wired version with a greenback speaker in it is very special. as different people were building the Vox amps, things changed a little bit. We had a 2002 Cortex Vox that was one of our first things. That's actually free for every unit we support. You can grab that. That sounds awesome. We also have a 63 Vox, 64 Vox AC30, probably more in line with what you'd expect Brian May to use. The point I'm making here, though, is just depending on who had ownership of the company would change about how things sounded. The AC15 is not merely a 15-watt version of an AC30. It has some different character, a little bit. Now, I spent a lot of time, Brian and I both, listening to amps, making patches, listening very hard to hear differences, what certain things about an amp are different than others, so we can try to accentuate that and give you something that sounds really great, something that just adds a little bit more of a variety in your palette. Something like this AC15 is going to be a little more girthy. Like I said, we have a free version of a 2002 AC30. I would say that these are more similar to each other. Not sound the same, but more similar. And they are really great. An AC15 has more headroom than you might think. Very dynamic. And that's the goal here, I think, when we're trying to put an amp into a digital aspect, digital unit, is what does this amp offer that others don't? This, I would say, if you're like wanting hard to like Vox sounds and you find that they're just like too thin, too nasally, maybe too brittle and chimey for you, if that's how you hear Vox amps, I would strongly suggest checking out this AC15. It's got a greenback in the back. Well, it's got a greenback in it, and it sounds awesome. Nice and tight, overdriven sounds. It's not too chimey, but it's got some. It's not thin because like we don't have like an Alnico blue or gold or creamback in it. It's got the greenback, and so those to me tend to be a little beefier, a little stiffer, and they maintain like the full EQ range a little bit more to me than what you would hear with like a blue or something like that. So this amp does in fact have two channels, normal and top boost. If you're utilizing any of the capture profiling units, Kemper, Quad Cortex, TONEX, you do get the gamut from normal to top boost. If you are utilizing any of like our modeler units, Fractal stuff, Helix stuff, and Quad Cortex actually as well, you're getting presets dialed in to kind of like take advantage of all this amp can offer. For Helix, Fractal, Quad Cortex, you're getting two sets of patches. Well, two sets. Each one has humbucker and single coil, but you're getting an A preset and a B preset. We've done that a little bit. We did that with the Royalist, and we did that with the stereo amps pack, and we're starting to kind of do that with amps to try to really maximize what those amps can do. We're trying to cram as much value as possible. What you're getting, patch A, is two instances of the amp, exactly the same, stereo, all effects into the front. Really cool sound. That's what I prefer, and Brian is starting to love that more and more himself, but it's definitely how I have always gone for it. I like that sound. Easy thing to do would be like, if you want to try to mix it up, pull that AC15, one of the instances of the AC15 out and drop in something else. The Lightning, Matchless Lightning would be cool to pair with it. Maybe even the Benson Monarch. Those are lower wattage amps. I tend to like to try to match amps by wattage similarly. I wouldn't necessarily throw the DC30, but you could, because then you could call it like AC/DC. That'd be cool, which is what we're going to do. Stereo amp patch in that regard is going to come at some point soon. Anyways, you're getting the A patch. It's just like pedal board into the front of an amp. Very cool sound. Amp is a little hotter than normal because it sounds really good like that. There's like one instance that I'm playing TONEX that I'm running the amp a little dirtier, and I'm only stepping on dirt for like another part, but it's got more dirt and it sounds really nice and it's really dynamic. You're also going to get a B patch. Basically, all drives into the amp, all stereo stuff starts after the amp. And what that has allowed us to do is to gain up the amp with the switch, so you can get a really clean instance of the amp, hit the goose amp button, which is what I really like to call it. It gains up the amp. All wet effects are after. Kind of hard, like the way we gained it up. If you were to have the amp like that and then run effects into it, that gets a little too messy. If you really like that, knock yourself out. Just copy those settings and put them on the A amps. But this is really cool because it eliminates, actually, if you're trying to save some DSP for whatever reason, it eliminates the need for an extra drive. I think we still put one in there anyways, but you step on the goose amp button and it's considerably cleaner than it is on the A patch, and then you step on the button and it gains it up, and it sounds really nice. Like, doesn't just sound like a gained up amp. It sounds like there's a nice overdrive pedal on it. Nice and smooth, nice and tight, not flubby, not like just beefy and falling apart. Very tasteful. if you're not typically a Vox person and you've like, for me, for a little bit, I wanted to like it, and I like would not set up amps the right way thinking that I was going to get the sound. Not important. I came around to it and realized how much I really do like the sound. If you're that person though, you're like, I can't really get into Vox or something about it, I would say this is the Vox for you. That greenback really does a number to kind of maintain that high end, but also not knock off the low end. If you're a person who really does like Vox and you're sitting there thinking like the exact opposite, but also in a similar vein, like the person who doesn't like Vox is thinking, this isn't for me, why am I buying this? The person who loves it is thinking, I have enough Vox variants, why would I get this? There is something about like the beefiness and the girthiness that an AC15 has. It's just not quite the same as an AC30. It sounds really good. Like I mentioned, pairing up maybe like the Matchless or the Monarch would be super cool. If you were just watching this because you like watching these videos and maybe you're not a modeler or digital unit person at all, I would also suggest you look at purchasing a Vox AC15, hand-wired AC15 of your own. I've seen them going on Reverb. You could probably get one close to 1,000, but like 11, 12, 1,300 has seemed to be like a, $100 difference there, seem to be about where they're selling for. And I am very impressed with this amp. Amps, you say hand wired and it tends to like seem really fancy, but like that was the standard back in the day. And now there are ways that companies can use like printed boards to eliminate having to do as much. Now, I don't really know how amps are done. I made a comment one time about like PCB boards and like something being hand wired, and somebody who made like pedals or amps told me that like, it's like, well, that's like the same thing or whatever. And so I'm not trying to claim to be that, but you can look at the insides of like a printed board of an AC15 and then look at this and it looks drastically different. You can tell a person made this. Now with excellence and it's clean, you can tell a person makes this, and that does do something. Does it justify the price difference between this hand-wired version and a run-of-the-mill AC15? I think it adds a little bit more. It's a little more hi-fi. You get a little more. It's like the difference between watching in 480 and 1080. 480, 420, 1080, 720, 4K, whatever. That's kind of what it's like listening to this thing to me. More headroom as well. Really great sound and amp. So if nothing else, if you watch this video and you're like, well, I'm not into any of those digital things, and you're looking for an amp, you should consider one of these. I actually want to run this with like my Lightning one Sunday. I said that about like for you digital folk who were trying to figure out how to pair this in stereo maybe. I want to try that because it sounds awesome. Anyways, links are below to grab everything you see here. This is out for Kemper. It's profiles for the Kemper. You can get it for TONEX, TONEX 1, that stuff works together. Quad Cortex, you get the presets. Nano, honestly, we have not gotten our hands on one quite yet. There's no reason the capture shouldn't work. The presets are what's gonna probably not work. Similarly to like trying to put a Helix patch into an HX Stomp. The DSP ain't gonna let you do it. I don't know if they've allowed you to somehow still transfer stuff over and you delete what doesn't work for you or whatever. I don't know. Nano, it should just drop right in. I will try to find out before this video is uploaded, and we can put a note right here, actually. That'd be cool. Also available for Fractal, the 3 units that we do with that. And yeah, all Line 6 stuff. So this sounds really great. I really liked it on Helix. I think it's one of my favorite like amps in the Helix, that style amp. I was running for a while like a Vox AC15 in the DC30, and I called it AC-DC because I thought that was kind of clever. I mentioned that we'll probably just go ahead and make that a patch at some point. It kind of works. The mismatch of wattage is doable in the digital realm. In real life, that can be kind of annoying to deal with because the headroom thing. But anyways, links below to check all this out. We should really get better at saying this earlier on in the video, but please subscribe. It means the world. Costs you nothing, but it means the world to us. And you mean the world to us. So, does that help? We'll see you next